Whatever you look, you will find shade for Russian President Vladimir Putin. He is at the heart of the Syrian conflict, an ally of Bashar al-Assad, and holds the key to a solution and the promised contracts for reconstruction. His fingerprints are clear in the Libyan conflict, where he imposed himself at the table of any dialogue that ends the conflict, and opens the door for investments in oil and in partnership in protecting the security of the Mediterranean. And Putin, who came from intelligence and from a long stay in Berlin during the days of division and the wall, realizes the importance of the conflict between the two poles that shared influence at that time, and the importance of restoring the Russian role in the international arena, even with weapons and tools different from the tools of the past. Putin has mastered the methods of interfering in the political process in Western countries well. He was the one who told her well, and it was one of his missions. Russian embassies are a permitted theater for this intervention, to attract opponents, and to pay money. The accusations do not stop at Moscow's role in sharing support and getting close to those who led and organized the Brexit campaign. The same accusations continue regarding Moscow's role in supporting Trump's 2016 presidential campaign and infiltrating the Democratic Party's campaign. Here on the Issues page, there is a presentation of the Russian role in the Arab region, through the revival of the bipolar conflict and the expansion of this role in various crises, in addition to accusations of continued Russian interference through campaigns to attract the Western voter. After the severe tension between Russia and the West against the background of the Ukrainian crisis, Russia began directing its foreign policy to wider spaces, and other circles emerged as a focal point for the Russian movement, including the former Soviet space, the Asian depth, the Middle Eastern borders as well as Latin America and Africa, and in all these circles it leads interests in both economic and strategic directions of Russia. In this context, the Middle East and the Arab region from the Gulf to the ocean are witnessing increased interest on the part of Moscow. The visit of Russian President Vladimir Putin to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the UAE, on October 14 and 15, 2019, confirmed the new start of Russian Gulf relations, and that it was a constant trend and a strategic choice in Russian policy, preceded by the signing of the Comprehensive Strategic Partnership between Russia and Egypt agreement in October 2018, which guarantees an organized framework that guarantees a stable and growing strategic partnership between the two countries in various fields. Syria remains the pillar of the Russian strategy in the region, and despite what some newspapers and the media circulated about the tense Russian-Syrian relations, this was nothing but a rearrangement and formulation of the frameworks for this relationship in the post-major battles and the preparation for reconstruction, and this includes not only the relationship between the two countries but limits other roles to international and regional partners and competitors. The summit of the guarantor trio in Syria, Russia, Iran, and Turkey, confirmed on July 1 the continuation of the Astana understandings between the three countries, which give Russia the upper hand in the Syrian file while recognizing the interests of other countries within certain limits, and it was a clear message that Russia will not allow for Western countries to obstruct the Russian harvest in Syria through Sanctions Caesar Act or others, or jump on the gains from the reconstruction in Syria. And it was no coincidence that the summit of the guarantor trio was held on the day after the Brussels Conference of Donor Countries to Syria. The military battles have receded and the economic battles started, and Russia seeks to confirm that it is the gateway to those who wish to obtain a share in the fruits of reconstruction in Syria. And as the military battles have led, they will lead the reconstruction and normalization of Syria's international and regional situation on the economic and political levels. Despite the geographical distance, the Syrian and Libyan files are linked, from the Russian point of view, from several angles. The first is that the Russian military presence in Syria needs a safe incubator in the Mediterranean that strengthens the Russian control and presence in it, and Libya is an ideal focal point in this regard, especially since the November 2017 agreement on the mutual use of airspace and airport infrastructure between Egypt and Russia. The fight against terrorism does not fully achieve Russian goals, which go beyond direct security and strategic goals to those related to energy markets. Russia may not want to dominate Libyan oil, as it is the second largest exporter of oil and the seventh of gas, and the Russian energy policy is based on partnership and not imposing control, that is, for Russia to be a partner in any projects to transport energy to Europe in a way that ensures that these supplies are not competitive and influential. Russia's current and future share in the European market, which is the largest and most important market for Russian energy disposal, and Moscow hopes to increase its share in it with the opening of the Northern Stream 2, Nord Stream 2, to Northern Europe and the Turkish torrent to its south. The difficulties facing the oil market add to the importance of this, as Russia must under the OPEC and agreement reduce its production until July by 2.5 million barrels per day, which is economically painful for it, especially with the deterioration in oil prices. The reduction may be extended to the end of the year if not oil demand is gaining ground. In this context, Russia is interested in the oil crescent in Libya and for it to be under the control of a friendly force, and to prevent Turkey from draining Libyan oil and damaging prices and markets as it did with Syrian oil before, taking into account the enormity of the Libyan oil wealth compared to its Syrian counterpart and the fact that Libya is an influential member of the organization OPEC and the closest to European markets. The second angle in the interconnectedness of the Syrian and Libyan files, that the transfer of terrorists from Syria to Libya does not end the threat that these elements pose to the security of Russia and the region from the Russian point of view, but rather reposition it, and it also makes the gains achieved in Syria threaten a setback, and the Russian leadership has warned in more than one occasion the danger posed by the transfer of increasing numbers of terrorists from Syria to Libya, and called for international cooperation to completely eliminate terrorism. Finally, breaking Turkey's thorn in Libya helps in directing a decisive blow to it in Syria and finally getting rid of the Idlib dilemma, the festering wound, in the words of Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. Despite the Russian-Turkish understandings, the Turkish moves still represent a threat to Russian interests and security. In more than one place, they are tactical understandings to avoid major direct clashes between the two parties, and are not strategic alignments between them. Libya has advanced a lot in Russia's Middle Eastern priorities, but Russia's dealings with it are still cautious given the complexity of the map of internal, regional, and international powers in it, and the desire not to harm the relationship with Italy, which is an important European partner to Russia, and a key ally of the Sarraj government. The Russian movement is focused on supporting Field Marshal Haftar, militarily and politically, as he is the force that fights terrorism on the ground, and ensures the continued control of the Oil Crescent. The formation of a regional international front in support of Field Marshal Haftar in international forums, at the forefront of which is the UN Security Council, which includes, along with Russia, France, Egypt, the UAE, and other powers concerned with the Libyan file, is considered a cornerstone of Russian policy to balance the pressures exerted by Turkey and behind it Washington. It is also noticeable that the Libyan and Syrian files are jointly presented in any Russian-Turkish understandings, so that the latter will pay attention to Russia's interests and be strongly present in Libya. In light of these data, the Russian presence in Libya has become stronger and clearer than before. Perhaps Moscow will not send regular forces or carry out direct air strikes as it did in Syria, because it realizes that the Libyan National Army is able to manage the battles with some of the necessary political and military support, which is what Russia is doing directly or through indirect channels, in a scenario that differs in its mechanisms. About Syria, but it is approaching the same goals in terms of preserving the unity of Libya and the complete elimination of terrorism in it and maintaining a strong influence of Moscow that may reach military bases that guarantee the interests of both parties. Whatever you look, you will find shade for Russian President Vladimir Putin. He is at the heart of the Syrian conflict, an ally of Bashar al-Assad, and holds the key to a solution and the promised contracts for reconstruction. His fingerprints are clear in the Libyan conflict, where he imposed himself at the table of any dialogue that ends the conflict, and opens the door for